ain't going back. Not gonna buy into all that. Hey, hey, ain't gonna hide. Gonna let all the fears slide. Got mother nature, it's on my side. Got a whole of the loving growing inside.
Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the New Now. I am here with Sherry Swiney. We are going to continue our chat from before when we discussed, it's all your fault, which kind of rubbed a few people the wrong way, but we meant more along the lines of you have full responsibility for your life. You have the power to pick up what you need to do. We're going to look at this one kind of, let's say, picking up your purpose, moving from lies to love, and how that can help you grow any way you would like in your life. Hey, Sherry.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. So what do you think about today's topic? From lies to
I
love,
think,
picking up
yeah, I
purpose.
think it sounds intriguing. Yeah. So from lies to love. Well, I grew up with a bunch of lies. In fact, we all did. And so we I didn't just jump from lies to love. It took a while. It took me like, I don't know, 10 years or something like that. But I kept working at it. I kept working at it the whole time. So I was determined to do that because my heart had been broken a number of times. And so I had hardened myself because I
Mm,
didn't want to get hurt anymore. And so I wasn't, I was compassionate, but I didn't want to let on that I was really compassionate because
mm,
I didn't want to be vulnerable because I thought that that was a bad thing. I thought that that was a sign of weakness.
mm,
And so, of course, I finally learned that, to be vulnerable is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness. If you're willing to be vulnerable in front of other people or even to yourself, um, then you're being honest.
mm.
You're being honest. Anyway, so yeah, so that's how I did that. But it was a long, long road. And I don't know where you want to go with this.
Well, we can start covering the entire road. I mean, I do understand what you mean by hardening your heart. I can recall
Yeah.
a long time ago, a friend asking me if I could feel my heart, and I thought I was a loving being at the time, and then I felt like, hollow wood kind of in my chest area.
Yeah.
Freaked out for a few days, and kind of went on a similar path as you, trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
How, and so how did you learn to become vulnerable after the hardening, shall we say?
Well, I had a dear friend of mine she kept telling me to just go ahead and be vulnerable, Sherry. You'll be fine. And I'm like, no, I don't need to be vulnerable. I don't want to be vulnerable. I mean, that's a sign of weakness. No, 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 that's not a sign of weakness. So she started me on the path by telling me that no, that's not a sign of weakness. And so, I don't know how I did that for sure. I just kind of tried it, I guess, one day, and the earth didn't fall in, and nothing, the earth didn't end, and life didn't end, and I wasn't like feeling weak or anything like that. It's just I kind of was a little um timid to do that, you know but yeah, I just when I was growing up, I never stood up for myself. I always
Mm.
stood up for the other person. And as long as my parents weren't around, I stood up for other people. Because my parents were, it was kind of a hard life.
Mm.
Anyway, so yeah, so I'm not sure where to go with this, but
Well, let's see,
uh,
your friend, right? Why did she suggest that to you? Were you guys having some sort of specific, experience at the time? And she said, best you're vulnerable now instead of hardened.
well,
What
yeah,
brought?
I was teaching her that that's a lie program because
Okay.
she was having some problems. And so I was trying to show her how powerful she is. So I knew all of that.
Mm.
I just didn't know I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I didn't really know how to love, which is probably why the marriages that I had didn't last until the last one.
Mm.
And so, um, Yeah. So she just started in with, she was noticing that I was not being vulnerable and I didn't really know what she meant. It's like, I don't know what you mean. I mean, I'm just, what do I have to, say that I'm this or that, or, I'm kind of, this weakling. And she's like, no, 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 that's not what I mean. She said, you just need to be real.
Mm.
And I said, well, I think I am real. So this was kind of the conversation that we had. And we had these conversations often because I was showing her, I was working with her on the That's a Lie program. That was before it became official. It was before it got on, before I wrote it up and got it online. It's
Gotcha.
just something that I did. And so yeah, so she was asking me, well, aren't you afraid of anything? And well, no, I'm not afraid of anything. I don't have any fear in me anymore. But yeah, so let's see. Yeah, so we just started talking about the vulnerability part. And I guess I finally realized that, yeah, okay, I just need to be who I am.
Mm.
But I didn't really know who I was. See, that was the problem. I didn't really, who am I? What am I?
Mm.
Yeah. So one thing led to another, and I'm not sure how to put that in words. Um, oh gosh, I wish I had known this ahead of time.
Well, how did you learn to love yourself? You mentioned, your first few relationships not working out, marriages, because you hadn't figured out loving yourself.
No, no.
So how did that come about in relation to what we're talking about? Let's say.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first marriage, who's the father of my children, I didn't really, I didn't feel love for him. I liked him and he was a good guy, but I didn't feel love. I didn't know what love felt like.
Mm.
And then I finally, we broke up, got divorced. And then a few years later, I met somebody else and I thought I loved him, but I didn't really love him. He loved me, I guess, but I didn't really know how to receive that.
Mm.
So I tried to love him, but I failed. So I failed miserably. So I put up with that for I tried for like, oh, I don't know, 18 years.
It's a long trial.
Yeah, yeah. And finally I said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I just can't keep pretending like this. I mean, there was too much water under the bridge between us. So finally I just walked away. I just washed my hands of everything. I said, you know what, you can have everything. I don't want anything to do with you. I'm just leaving. So I left and then started, just picked up my bootstraps. And that was when I made the big breakthrough after I walked away and I was actually free. Because up until then, I felt like I was in a jail or something. I
Mm.
was, he was a big control freak. So, but I mean, I'm not putting it all on him. I know that part of it was my fault. But anyway, long story short, um, I got free. I started all over again. I did well. And then I studied martial arts. That taught me a lot of how to let go of stuff and how to actually be me,
Mm.
and how to find who I was, kind of thing. And I encountered some really wonderful people in the class, so that helped a lot. And so I got good at it. And anyway, so that happened, and by then I had met by then I had met my friend, and she and I just hit it off real good, real well. And she lived in Washington and I lived in Idaho, so we weren't that far away. And so we talked on the phone a lot, and then we finally met in Idaho. she flew to Oregon, I think. And then no, she flew to Spokane, I guess. Anyway, so I went and picked her up and then drove back, and we spent a couple of weeks at my place in Idaho. And so I introduced her to a side of life that she had never been exposed to, which was very spiritual, very crystals and all that stuff, and martial arts and all that good stuff. So she kind of freaked out about that because that was like way out of her comfort zone. So I was working with her on that, and I wasn't forcing her to like it. I was just, suggesting that she take a look at it instead of run away.
Look at what?
The crystals and the people in town in Sandpoint, Idaho. A lot of them were very, very spiritually high, very spiritually evolved, and so you knew that just talking to them.
So why did you want her to meet these people?
Because I needed to go into the crystal shop, just kind of look around and see what I could find. And I was looking for a particular crystal that spoke to me. So anyway, I was telling her, well, I just want to go in and get a crystal that speaks to me. And she's like, I didn't know that crystals spoke to you. And I said, well, they don't speak to you, but you can feel them. You can tell which one is yours. So she encountered the lady behind the counter, and the lady behind the counter was all pretty much a lot of woo-woo. And by then I was used to that, so it didn't bother me any. But it really freaked her out. So she just ran outside. And so I said, okay, well, let me get this crystal and I'll be right back. So I went out and talked to her, and she's like, this is just way too much. So that was her being real vulnerable. And I said, well, okay, why is that too much? It's nothing I'm used to. It's not something I've ever been exposed to before. Okay, that's fine. I didn't want to put her to any shame, and it was perfectly fine with me. And I guess that's what started her on the vulnerability part. Was telling me that I needed to be vulnerable too. Mm. And so then I finally realized what that meant, that it wasn't something weak, because I didn't consider her weak when she was being vulnerable. And so that worked out okay. So am I answering your question?
Yeah. So you learned to be vulnerable by watching her experience, a vulnerable situation.
Yeah. Kind of got that idea. And then of course I learned it in class, in the martial arts class. And because we were all being vulnerable there, because we didn't know the lessons. Some of the movements we couldn't do, and some of them we could do. And, we just kept getting better and better and better at it. And, so we learned the vulnerability that way. We watched other people be vulnerable. I watched myself be vulnerable. And so that helped me understand that that's not a weak thing. That's just being authentic. That's just being me. Yeah, so that works. And I guess from that point on, I just sort of relaxed. And then I learned how to love, I finally met a wonderful man that was, he thought I was, the best thing on earth. And so, he was really taken that I had an engineering background, and he was taken that I was so smart and all that stuff. And I never really considered myself, smart. So, so that's how that worked. And then I let myself love him. I fell in love with him, and that felt way, way different. So I think it was after that I started to concentrate and work on how do I forgive myself. for all the things that I had done in my past that weren't something to be proud of. So how do I let go of that, and how do I forgive myself, and then how do I love myself? That took a while.
Oh,
But I think,
how did you
go
forgive
ahead.
yourself? No, how did you forgive yourself?
Did I forgive myself?
No, how did you forgive yourself?
Oh, how did I forgive myself? Oh, geez. I don't know. I just,
Was there a process, or did you look at each individual, thing that you weren't proud of, let's say, and
oh,
go through
I
them?
did that in the beginning, sure. And then I chastised myself for it because I was my own worst critic for a long, long time. And, yeah, then I just, well, at some point, I don't remember exactly when, I learned the Ho'oponopono prayer. Do you know what that is? It's I I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, and thank you. So I learned that while watching a video. I don't remember his name, Vitalis or something. I don't remember his first name, but he was real big on Ho'oponopono. And then everybody was real big on Ho'oponopono, and everybody was back and forth of Ho'oponopono. So I'm like, what is this? So I went and looked it up, watched him, and he, explained what it was all about, wrote a couple of books about it. And then I thought, okay, well, that's an old Hawaiian prayer. And then I looked up the Hawaiian origin of it, and then found that, okay, this is an ancient prayer. This is like the Native Americans doing their rituals, which I was already sort of familiar with. And yeah, and then I could really pay attention to it. So coming from just him and coming from other people, I couldn't really pay attention to it. But for coming from the Native Hawaiians, well, then I could pay attention to it. So yeah, it just made sense. So I started doing that, and because I knew that I was responsible for everything that I did in my life, even though somebody might have tricked me or whatever the case may be. And I also knew that I was responsible for my part in the way that the system turned out. And now I can be part of fixing the system. So that's what I'm working toward lately, is, waking people up, to keeping them up to date. That's one thing, as much as I possibly can. And that's not easy to do. But also at the same time, sending out stuff that is very uplifting, that talks about the power of the people, the power of communities. And, don't pay attention to these people at the top that think they know what they're doing, because they have no idea what they're doing. And just, change your life, turn your life around to however you want to turn it around to, but walk away from that system. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. And but I couldn't have done that if I hadn't forgiven myself. I know that.
So did you have any major epiphanies on a personal level? I mean, you talked about the Oponopono poem, but did anything hit you on what you needed to forgive? Like, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me. Was there some specifics?
Well, I had already worked out a bunch of that stuff. I had already chastised myself over all these things that I had done. So I had really kicked myself around the block a million times already, to where I was really punishing myself.
Mm.
And that just doesn't work. It just brings the negative energy to you, so that things start falling apart around you. So when I started doing the Ho'oponopono prayer, and some other things too, but I would sit on my porch in the morning and do the Ho'oponopono prayer over and over and over and over and over again. And I would do that every single day for, I don't know, about a year, I guess. And then things started changing in my life. So I thought, okay, so I'm bringing in some good energy here. I already knew about the energy, and I didn't want the negative energy coming my way. And yeah, so things started going better for me and in my general area. So I really can't complain about that. And yeah, so I mean it's been a delightful experience, and I don't know how, I'm 78 years old now. I'll be 79 in September. And I don't know how much longer I have to be here. So I want to make the best of every moment that I've got. And yeah, so I keep working on it all the time. I don't ever stop. I don't ever say, "Oh, okay, now I got it." Now I know everything. Yeah. Because you never do know everything.
Well, how would you tie this in? Let's say we're going to, bring it back a little bit to your That's a Lie program, which you and I have chatted about before. And, the voices that come into your consciousness, between your ears that give you, I guess, which inspired you, so to speak, to realize they were lying to you about things. How would you, thread that in through the story you just shared about your life and how it helped you
Oh,
become strong? Yeah.
yeah, that I still use it. I still use it whenever I need to, and I don't need to use it very often, but sometimes I do. But it hardly ever happens anymore. But still, I can tell when people are lying most of the time, and but I can certainly tell when the news is lying for sure. And I mean, it gets so confusing sometimes, or people are like, how do you know what's true and what's not true? And well, uh, I don't really know what's true anymore with the news. I mean, I know what feels right to me, and I know what doesn't feel right to me at all. So what they're doing right now, it doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right at all. And what I'm doing in my life feels right. So, like I'm gardening and I'm living out in the countryside, and I don't ever hardly go to town, or if I do, it's because I'm meeting with some friends or whatever like that. But most of the time, I don't really go into town, unless it's just to run errands and stuff. So, but yeah, so when I read the news, it's like, okay, that sounds like a pack of lies. That sounds like a manipulation. And so I just, so I want to send it out and put a little preface to it of here's my thoughts on it. And then I'll put that out and people will read it or not. And I have quite a large email list. So, hopefully a lot of people read it. And then I still post to Facebook and Gab, and then Activate Humanity. So, I'm posting all over the place, and then I send it off to other people who hopefully send it off to their people. So it helps get stuff circulated.
But
And
how did you use the That's a Lie program on a personal level? Like I see how you're using it on the outer world.
okay, yeah.
Let's say judging it on your inner world.
Yeah, so on a personal level, way back when, before I, broke free of the voices and stuff, I finally got to know that everything that I was hearing was a lie. So originally I was going to try to reprogram my brain, but because it kind of works like a computer, and I knew computer programming, but then I got to thinking, well, no, the brain is way too complicated for that. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's a good idea, but I don't think I can do that. So I need something really super simple that I can remember, because when I'm in the midst of being attacked, I can't remember. I'm so taken up with the attack that I can't really remember what to say, what to do. So So when I came up with "that's a lie," I thought, oh, okay, that solves it. I know that whatever they're telling me is a lie. So all I have to do is say that's a lie, keep doing that over and over and over again, and rebuild a new pathway in my brain, and stop using the other one until it atrophies.
Mm.
And then I can't use it. I can't use it at all. So that worked. That actually worked. And so I told Jerry about it, and he started using it on some of his patients, and it worked for them.
You mean Jerry Marzinski?
Yeah. So it worked for them. And he said, he knew that was the truth. And, but he didn't know, how to get the people to use it, how to get them to understand it. So he said, you really need to write this up. I said, oh, okay, I'll write it up. So I thought I'd write it up, and I put it on my blog. And I sent it to him to have a look at, to see if he wanted to make any changes. And so then he sent it back. I think he made a couple of changes. So, yeah, and then I posted it, and the next thing I know, it just took off. It just took off. People loved it. And they're, like, holy cow. I mean, I didn't know that people were going to just really grab onto it and like it. So then now I have on Jerry's website, I'm getting rid of my own website. It's in the archives, but I'm not going to be paying for that anymore. I think I'm just going to put the archive links on Jerry's website. And, because I don't really do much on there anymore, but I'll keep my blog active. So, so I have a link on Jerry's website for the blog and the all of his stuff, because the That's a Lie program is in his articles page. So now I have 3 parts. So I have the first part, which was the original, and then the second part, which was the technical side of it, because it's the subconscious. Bruce Lipton talks about how it works like a tape recorder, and you can't just reprogram it. You just have to override it. So that's the analogy. So if you think about it that way, it's the subconscious is what runs 95% of our life. So that's not good. It's the subconscious is also running your heart and your blood pressure and all of that stuff, your digestion system and stuff like that you don't have to think about. But it's also running your other programs that, your habits and that kind of stuff. So if you want to change it, you have to really work at it. And so you get it up to your conscious level, and you get it up to your conscious level, and then you live consciously rather than living unconsciously. So there's a whole book on that. I don't remember the name of it now. Living Consciously or something like that. Anyway, so I think I can't remember who wrote it now, because I've read so many books and I don't remember. They just all kind of blend in. But I can send it to you if you like. And anyway, so there's a lot of books I've read that have confirmed what I came up with on my own. So that's a good thing. That means I'm not alone, in my thinking. And even if I was, it would still be valid because it works. Anyway, so so that's how I started it. And every time that the voices would come in and say something to me, I would just say, you know what, that's a lie. That's a lie. I send you love. I didn't do the send you love for a while, but I just did that's a lie. That's a lie. And then eventually they'd go away, and they wouldn't come back for quite a while. Then they'd come back again. So I just say, that's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. I know that's a lie. You're not getting me. I'm not buying it.
Mm.
And so then I got to this point of saying, okay, that's a lie. I know that's a lie, but I send you love. And then they would just vanish. because they don't like that love energy. I couldn't have done that if I hadn't learned how to love.
Mm.
So it all kind of goes together.
It does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you're using love on both sides to love yourself and to love out and to change things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, when you're loving somebody, or you're looking at a scenery, and you're just loving it because it's so beautiful, you're appreciating it, that frequency goes out into the world.
Mm.
And it has an effect, no matter how small, it has an effect. And if you keep it up every day, and if more people keep it up every day, eventually it's going to change your whole surroundings. It's going to change your whole life.
Mm.
It's going to change everybody who's in your field. They're going to feel it, and they're going to wonder, well, what is this? It might not be a palpable feeling to begin with, but later on it will be. So yeah, that's my experience. What's yours?
Well, it would depend which moment you're talking about, but I would say of a similar path from maybe more of a sharp perspective, since I was very hard on myself, but I took the opposite opinion. I was soft on myself and hard on others, and I had to flip my own script that way and realize that I was being too easy on myself and too hard on others. As far as learning to love myself was being honest with how I was not so nice to the world around me. And so maybe I did the male version of the female version, instead of blaming where often ladies will blame themselves for challenges when it's not their problem. I would blame others when it was my fault.
Oh, yeah. So, and that's a good point, because a lot of people will blame everybody else for their life, and in fact, women will too.
Mm.
My daughter did, and some other people that I know have done that, and they are women. So it's not just to men, but I think most of the time it probably is men. But yeah. So I know some people who will want to put the blame on everybody else for everything that they've done that hasn't turned out right. And when they keep doing that, they just keep having wrong stuff happening in their life. It never fails. It just never fails.
Mm.
So when you say, well, wait a minute, this is my responsibility. It really is my responsibility. It's my fault. And, I did this, or I said that, or I walked away, or I did, whatever it was that I did that kind of provoked that situation. And even if it wasn't your fault, you still have to take responsibility for it.
Mm.
Because you were there. You got to be the sounding board. You got to receive the brunt of whoever else's stuff. So that may not sound fair, but it really is fair. It really is fair, because that's just the way the world is.
Yes. I found a lot of people don't take responsibility for walking into a situation. They just look at a very limited part of an experience, going, someone was mean to me, or violent to me, or harsh to me, or rude to me, but they don't want to take it back or up higher to the big picture as to, like, how did you end up there in the first place?
Yes. Yeah, it's like, okay, so how did I end up in the first place with my first husband?
Mm.
He was a nice guy. He was, he loved me like crazy. I didn't love him, but he was the only person that asked me to marry him. Well, what kind of, weakness is that on my part?
Mm.
And that was because of the way that I was raised as a child. I was raised to get beaten first and then you get loved. If you want to get loved, you have to get beaten first. So that kind of, you have to be mistreated first. So that was the message that I got as a kid. And then that went through until I was like, I don't know, 13 or 14 years old. And yeah, that was about right. So then when I was 16 years old, I left home. I was on my own. I had no idea how to make my way in the world. No idea. I had no training, nothing. So I was just floundering. But I was smart, and I got a good job. And by the time I was 18, and I did odds and end jobs while I was still in school. And so I could afford to rent an in-law apartment. It was in a garage. And there was a lovely couple that lived upstairs. They kind of took care of me. They, kind of, I don't know, took me under wing or something. And I took a bus to work. And one thing led to another. And the next thing I knew, here I was at this good job when I was like 18 years old. And then I met my first husband. And back in those days, you had to get married and have kids and then, settle down and have the American dream. So that's all I knew. I mean, I wasn't streetwise. I wasn't, I had been isolated my whole life. So I wasn't really aware of how life should be. I just heard the rumors, and then I thought, okay, well that's what I have to do. I have to get married and have a family and live the American dream. So, I mean, what a fallacy that is. And whoever buys that, you have to be dreaming to believe it. I mean, but I believed it at the time, so I was walking in my sleep. And so I learned through the hard knocks of life what was real and what wasn't real. So now I've come to this point where nothing is real, everything is false, everything's a lie. The only thing that's not a lie is that I exist, and I made it this far. So and I'm doing okay, and I don't know how much longer I have to be here. It might be 100 years, it might be 2 years, it might be tomorrow, I don't know, but I don't care because I'm not worried about that. I don't have any fear of anything. So I mean, I really you just kind of get to that particular point where I wish I had been there a long time ago, but I wasn't. So I'm glad I'm here now. So, yeah.
I understand. It's one of the interesting perspectives of life is that by picking up where you were wrong, you get to drop your fears, you get to find your dreams, you get to move to where you always wanted to once you stop blaming, once you stop complaining.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then you can get on with okay, what do I like to do? What do I like to do? Well, I like to garden. And so that's one of the things that I'm doing. I like to write, so I do that. And when I was working, I loved my job, because I was using my brain and my body to, because I loved construction. So yes, I mean, even when I was in the construction company, and it was a big firm, I really liked the work, and I had the respect of everybody there. So I didn't have any trouble there. So I think that was because I was open I knew what I was talking about
Mm.
most of the time. Sometimes I didn't, but then I'd ask, okay, so I don't know this answer. So what is it? Where do I find it? I wasn't embarrassed to, I didn't have a problem with saying I don't know something, but I had to get to that point.
Mm.
Because when I first started working, I couldn't say, oh my God, I don't know that. Because what? Because what? Would I get fired or would I get hit or would I get, I mean, I didn't know. I didn't know. So I had to get over that. So I had like this early on, I had like this basic fear of everything. So, so I mean, just one by one, I had to get over those fears. So I did get over those fears. And uh yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't I guess I don't worry about much of anything. So maybe because I'm so old, I don't know. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think you've made some choices that a lot of people I've chatted with find almost impossible to make. Like, I'm staying together for the children, or I've been at this job for 20 years, so I have a mortgage, I need to stay, or I want to leave this location, but I don't know where I would go. So they don't make that, initial step.
Mm.
They'll say they're wrong, but they won't make the next step, which is like, so how did you gain the power, let's say, to take that next step? So you saw you were wrong in a marriage or a relationship or a job, and then you moved. So what gave you the oomph to
Um,
to do that?
I don't really know what gave it to me other than it was just within me to do it. I mean, I just decided, okay, I can't put up with this anymore. I'm leaving. Yeah, so, that's all there was to it. I didn't care what the consequences were. So maybe that was why. And I was, I didn't worry about getting another job because I was good enough to just walk in any place and just say, hey, I'm here. I see that you're working on this project and blah, blah, blah. And do you need any help? And then they would say, well, we don't really have an opening, but you know what? We're gonna make something for you. I mean, it was
Mm,
that kind of the thing that was going on. And of course, I think that was because I felt so confident that wasn't the finding a job wasn't a problem. And I think that would probably work for most everybody if they had the confidence, not to go in like, I gotta have a job, I gotta have this job. Because when you're approaching somebody like you're desperate, they don't want to they don't want to be around you,
mm.
you know. But if you approach somebody like, you're confident that you know what you're doing and you could do this work, well, then they're more apt to be welcoming, unless they're a butthead, but if they're not, they'll probably say, well, geez, I don't have the budget for you, but go down the street and talk to Joe Smith over here or something, and they'll hook you up or something like that. So that's happened to me a couple of times too. So maybe maybe that's why. I don't really know, but I didn't have any fear to walk off
Mm.
and go change my life, walk
That
into a whole brand new reality, one that I hadn't ever experienced before. So I was used to moving around from in construction projects, one project to the next.
mm.
Was used to that. That was one thing. And then I was used to, traveling around the country and meeting new people and just settling in and getting the job done. So maybe that's why. I don't really know for sure.
Oh, it's to me, like, watching you even during this conversation shows the potential for such quiet power that people can pick up, because
Oh,
you're not like, oh, I did it, I succeeded, and I slayed all my enemies, right? So you're just going, well, just wasn't afraid, so I went. And
yeah.
and it shows you how simple this powerful movement away from things that are a lie for you, whether it's a lie of a relationship or a lie of a job or a lie of a
Mhm.
whatever, You know, you just tell yourself it's a lie and then you move and then you don't worry about the consequences. So that's,
Yeah, and well, I probably wouldn't have left if my children weren't taken away by the judge. That was really unfair. I fought so hard to keep them, but I wasn't going to stay with my husband. I wasn't going to stay with their dad. I was just going to take them and, go off and start a life all over again. And then they could go visit their dad and stuff like that. But that didn't happen that way. And so I ended up going to visit them. And then I got tricked into them not being there, and they were disappeared, and, one thing and another. And so I was on the phone with the lawyer and the judge all the time saying, hey, I really want to see my kids. Where every time I go up there, they're not there. I have an appointment to see them and they're not there, so I didn't just show up on their doorstep and, so I would have an appointment, but, they just weren't always there. So there was that. So finally I just said, I'm finally, after, I don't know, 10 years or something like that of going through that, I finally just said, you know what, I don't need this anymore. They're fine without me. At least I hope so. And I'm just going to take off and go do my thing, because there wasn't any point. I mean, because they weren't there, and if I did catch them there, I had them for a couple hours and that was it. So it's like, that's not a motherhood. That's not being a mom.
no.
So, so finally I just disappeared. I traveled around and found another job, and it was just that was just how I did that. Finally, but I kept writing to him every day. I'd write to him and then put it in the mailbox, and then come to find out many years later that all of the letters were received, but they were put in a box and they weren't shown to the kids. So then, and my eldest son, who's passed away now, he had a girlfriend in school named Sherry. And so he wanted to send her a Valentine card. So he had this Valentine card and he wrote out this note to her. And then I don't remember how he found the box, but he found the box. I think it was under a bed. Which bed, I don't remember. But he found the box, and then he opened it up and saw all these letters from his mom to each of the kids. Because I wrote each one separately. Once in a while I'd write to all three of them, but most of the time I wrote to each one. There's three. So most of the time I'd write 3 letters every day. And so, and I don't remember what I said, because, some of them were short and some of them were long. So by the time I got done doing all that, it's like, okay, this just isn't working. This isn't being a mom, and I wanted to be a mom, but I couldn't be a mom. So maybe that's just not in the cards for me. And the whole American dream was gone. So that was a lie. That American dream was a lie. You can't get it. You really can't get it. And, unless you're one of the elite or something, then you can probably get it. But even then, they're not getting it. They're not getting it at all, because they're messing things up. So I just took off and, said goodbyes. And I think I kept writing to him for a couple of years. And then finally I just stopped. And then, just let it all go. So that was actually the best thing I could have done, because that made them, I guess when they got older, they started thinking about me, like, what happened to my mom? And, why doesn't she come around, and blah, blah, blah. And so I don't really know what was going on through their mind, but I heard what they heard from their dad, which was really not good. So, you would have thought that I was this horrible person that walked on the planet. And yeah, I mean, I was just as bad as, like some of our most nefarious elites in the White House. So I knew those were lies. I didn't know what to do about it. So I just, said, okay, I can't do anything about that. I can't defend myself on that. So I'm just going to go my own way. So I did that. And, I met new people and I got new work and I learned new things. And then I got into, the second marriage, which was really a big mistake. But he had a promise of homesteading and, stuff like that. And so I think I wasted like 18 years, but it wasn't really a waste because I learned a lot. I learned what not to do. I learned, that was most of the thing that I learned what not to do. So, and I learned something about homesteading and kind of how to do that, but I didn't really have any practical practice because I wasn't allowed to do that. So, by the time I left that, I was 50 years old then. And I realized, okay, I just wasted 18 years of my life. But it wasn't really a waste now that I stop and think about it. I'm really kind of grateful that all of that happened because I learned a lot. I learned a lot about politics and war and the world and all that stuff that I never knew about. And it was a shocker to me. Every time I learned something new, I learned a truth. It was a shock to me. So now when I learn a truth, it's like, I already thought that, or I already had an idea. So now, well, then I met my last husband, and he was a good man. He was a faithful man. He loved me like crazy, and I loved him. So that was the first time I had ever really loved somebody. So that was really wonderful. But we were only together 13 years, and then he was killed. So I had to get over that, and I was building this particular homestead for us to live on, and obviously that didn't happen. So now I'm, I think, let's see, I was 64, 65, I think, when he was killed. And we were the same age. So he was 64, I think it was. Anyway, that's kind of beside the point. So that wasn't going to happen, but I already had the foundations poured for the house. It was my design and, his input, and he was going to help me with the wiring, show me how to do the wiring and, the air conditioning and stuff like that. And I was going to do the structural and all of that good stuff because that was my forte. Anyway, so long story short, I had to get over that and kind of learn how to, be on my own again. But I had already been on my own the whole time, really. I mean, I wasn't really, from the time that I walked away from my second husband after 18 years, I was on my own, and I stayed that way. I became really independent. And so that's where I learned an awful lot more spiritual lessons and the importance of. That's where I kind of picked up the That's a Lie program,
Mm.
And that's where I've perfected that. And because I couldn't believe that I had been taken for such a long 18-year ride, but I was, because I didn't have the guts to get up and walk away. And that's all it was I didn't have the guts to get up and walk away. I was actually afraid of this guy. So I wanted to stay and make peace. But that's never the right thing to do.
No.
If you can't work it out, then you have to realize that you can't work it out and just walk away. Or somebody's got to walk away. He's got to walk away, or you've got to walk away.
I agree. I think that's good advice for any situation in life. If it's not feeling right.
Yeah, for sure. And it wasn't feeling right for me at all. And I don't think it was feeling right for him either.
Mm.
But I don't really know. I mean, he blamed me for everything. So I don't really, he was kind of the narcissist, kind of, control freak. I didn't recognize that from the beginning. So, what are you going to do? If you don't recognize it, then you're just going to be stuck. But if you do recognize it, then you can say, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. But you have to get to that point. You finally have to get to the particular point. For me, it took 18 years. Maybe somebody else could do it a lot faster.
No, it took me a long time to figure out how wrong I was in so many perspectives and from so many situations and so many ways. Even just recently in the judgments of my parents, by having some conversations with them while they were alive, going, man, I was wrong about some of the things I thought were true, and then I realized, later in life that they weren't.
Wow, that's a big one.
Yeah, well, it's allowed my love to grow for my parents quite a bit, right? Instead of I was spent 10 years angry and I didn't talk to them because I was, pissed off for one thing or the other, various reasons. And then eventually I realized I was wrong, and I was lying to myself about, everyone has had a hard time. Everyone's had their experiences. Everyone's had their challenges. Everyone's been good and bad, ugly and loving in their way.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, I don't know anybody who hasn't been good, bad, and ugly during their lifetime.
Yeah.
So we have to not be ashamed of that if we want to let it go. I mean, that's what I think. And it just seems to me that if you can acknowledge that and then let that be okay, let that just go, and then forgive yourself for that. It's like, okay, I was dead wrong, and I didn't know that I was wrong.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Yeah.
Or I wouldn't have done that. If I had known that I was wrong, I certainly wouldn't have done that. Right. So then you can forgive yourself, because actually then you're kind of ignorant in those years. So ignorance is really forgivable in my view.
Sure.
Stupidity. Stupidity is ignorance on purpose, but ignorance out of not knowing.
Sure, I can hear you. What you mean by that?
Yeah. I mean, no, if you do something wrong and you know that it's wrong, that's stupidity. That's not ignorance. It's like these people in the up in the elite, and they're kind of claiming, well, we didn't really know. That's bullshit.
Of course.
Excuse me.
Of course.
Yeah. So that's not forgivable. They want us to just, give them amnesty and all that stuff. It's a no. We can forgive you, but you have to pay for it first.
I hear you. One way or the other. One way or the other, everyone has to pay for their own ignorance. That's for sure. Or their own stupidity.
Well, yeah. And so, we also have to pay for our ignorance.
It's true.
So we can forgive our own ignorance. And we can forgive somebody else's ignorance, genuine ignorance, if they just don't know. They just don't know. That's different than I knew and I did it anyway.
Mm, I
That's
hear
way
you.
different. Yeah.
Well, it's sweet in the bitter and sad and I would say fun way of watching and hearing about your life. You know, obviously you haven't had an easy road by any stretch of the imagination, and you've had to let go of some of the hardest things for, you know, a mother and their children and relationships and
Yeah.
things, and yet here you are.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I lost my first son, but he came back to me first, and we were getting our relationship together, and it was a good one because he realized that I had been lied to.
Mm,
He realized he had been lied to, so we kind of said, okay, well, let's just, please forgive me. And he's like, yeah, 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 I'll forgive you. And then he's like, could you forgive me? And I said, I don't know what to forgive you for, but I forgive you. Okay, I forgive you for everything. And I mean, he had a rough life too. But then that's a long story. So, but then he died a few years ago. And then my second son, he's a whole different person. And, we talked and I said, I wish, I wonder how life would have been if you hadn't been taken away from me that way. And he said, well, I probably wouldn't have been married to my beautiful wife and I probably wouldn't have my daughter and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh gosh, I had never even thought about that.
mm,
So, okay, that's good. That's a good thing. That's a good outcome.
mm.
And he's like, I don't know if I would have been this successful computer programmer or whatever it is like that.
You never
So
know.
there's a lot of positive parts to all of your mistakes.
Mm.
You may not know what they are, but that kind of helps forgive everything. And he's certainly forgiven me. And I remember one time he said to me when he was young, real young, he said, I want to thank you, Mom, for bringing me into this world. And I said, my pleasure. So what could I say? I was on my way out the door, I mean, I couldn't do anything about that. And yeah, so he was thankful that I made a way for him to be here. So that was good. That was how he looked at it. And so now he looks at things way differently than probably most people do.
Mm.
So he doesn't see the world the way I do, only sort of, but we're on the same kind of energetic level. You know what I mean? Just different different generations, that's one thing. And then different talents, different friends, that's another thing. But the thought process, the spiritual side of it, I think we're pretty much on the same page. So yeah, so that's not a problem either. So now I have my granddaughter, and she's like 20, and she's been coming here in the summertime for the last 2 years.
Oh, nice.
And so, she helps me out in the garden and she does whatever she can. And she's really, she's an artist. And, so all of that has turned out to be very good.
Mm.
So, and I think that has to do with my positive outlook.
I would agree.
Yeah, yeah. So whatever a person has gone through, no matter how tough it is, if you want to get through it, you can.
Mm.
If you want to heal of it, you can.
Mm.
I mean, and whatever crumbs you left behind, that may be bad, but you don't know what good is there. Like I'm finding out what good is there from all of my mistakes. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that everything I left behind was good, but it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, people are doing whatever they're doing, and I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm not having any regrets anymore.
Hmm.
I used to have all kinds of regrets, and that's negative energy. That's just negative energy. And the voices will tell you, yeah, you need to regret everything. You know?
Yeah.
You need to be sorry about everything.
No, no, you just eat yourself away that way, and then there's nothing left.
Right, right.
Well, Sherry, I think we may have come to a beautiful conclusion in this conversation that I did not expect to go where it went.
I didn't either.
But I'm finding that I've even as we come to an end, I think I'm going to change the title to The Best of Every Moment, because it's been very uplifting. And you've kind of shown how to bring that out in and around and through the challenges. And you've given some very powerful lessons to the people that take a chance to sit and consider what you've said, I would say, because you've offered in a very sweet, quiet, and peacefully forceful way, you know, some hard lessons that could be turned into the most beautiful of flowers, as I see behind you. So that would be my way of seeing this conversation.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Is there anything you'd like to leave our viewers with? Although I think you've said it best when you said before, you know, pick up the crumbs, see what's behind you, and realize you never know what good's going to come from those.
That's true. That is so true. So I'll just leave you with that. I mean, I think that's a good one.
All right. Sherry, thank you so much for being here. I will leave the links below to your That's Alive program, to your Keyhole Journey blog for now, to Jerry's site as well, where a lot of your other, you know, information and videos and all these things can be found. And if you have anything you want to share with our viewers after we get off, feel free to send me the links or the articles or what have you, and I'll put it down there. And if anybody has any questions or suggestions or anything you might want me to talk about with Sherry in the future, please let us know. You know, I'm happy to hop on another one as we can both figure out the time that's good for us. And I love you all very much.
I love you too.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much again, Sherry. I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys on the next one. You know, I came across something even yesterday that told me, you know, you intend your life by what you're feeling, by what you're putting out there. And it's a direction of your wishes, if you like, your desires, your fulfillments. So what you target, you get. So understand what you're targeting, whether it's abundance, whether it's happiness, whether it's health, or whether it's the opposite of those things. And I don't mean by your words, but I mean by your actions and your feelings and your guts and what you're doing every day. Understand what you're targeting is what you'll get. What you're aiming for is what you will receive. And our course strictly will help distill your understanding of yourself as the person aiming your energy, and the target as in what you find possible.
Freedom, 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 yeah. Freedom, freedom, freedom is calling us. Freedom, 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 yeah. Freedom, freedom. Make me light, light up my heart. No one tells me where I should start. Freedom.